The principles of cooperation and implicature are central to so many meanings in a language, especially when we say conversational or pragmatic meanings. The cooperative principle is based on the assumption that listeners and speakers in a conversations are actually cooperating with each other. They are trying to create a rational communication by being honest and nice to each other. In other words, we could say that based on a cooperative principle, a listener could expect or assume that the speaker whom he is listening to is cooperating with him, and is whatever he or she is saying, it is honest, it is truthful, it is relevant, exact, and appropriate. So the speaker is not trying to befool the listener. Grice also claims that an overarching principle of human communication has been an impulse towards a good cooperative communication, or we could call it cooperative behavior. And based on this, he also divides certain principles or maxims of a cooperative communication. Some of the maxims which have been very popular in the field of pragmatics could be seen as the maxim of quantity, quality, manner, and relation. The maxim of quantity focuses on saying as much as is needed, and not saying what is not needed. So being specific and being and saying as much which would be the requirement of a certain communication. Then quality focuses on not saying what is not true, or not saying what lacks a rational evidence. So conversation should be qualitatively healthy and should not include anything which may be called untrue or would lead to a false conclusion. Then we also have maxim of relation, which focuses on or expects a speaker to be relevant, and then maxim of manner, which expects a speaker to be clear, orderly, brief, and not ambiguous. So these maxims, according to many proponents of pragmatic studies, believe that are important to bring in the cooperative principle in action. Implicature is another important concept which focuses on the implied meanings, or there are so many words which cover the meanings of implicature. For example, imply, suggest, or mean. They are as distinct from what the speaker literally says. So meanings conveyed or covered by implicature are those which are beyond literal meanings, and or which are conveyed indirectly. In our human communication, we see, if we just look at our own communication, everyday conversation with others, we would see that there are so many meanings exchanged by us indirectly. They are not conveyed directly or in a literal way. Let's have a look at this example. Participant A says, "My husband has just told me that he can't look after our daughter tomorrow after all." And B, the listener, says, "He is such a considerate man." What does this mean? Did the participant B actually means it? That the person who is not ready to look after his daughter is actually a considerate man? I don't think so. Probably the participant B in this conversation is saying it ironically or sarcastically. But we cannot understand the sarcasm by just knowing the literal meanings of these words. We have to dig deep to know the implied meanings, and that is where the real intent of the speaker lies. There are certain types of implicature. You could see them in front of your screen. Implicatures could be conversational, or conventional and conversational implicature could further be divided into particularized and generalized. Let's have a brief look or brief explanation of these kinds. Conventional implicature are those which are based on the use of specific words. For example, when we use these words, they convey a certain conventional meaning. For example, the word but, whenever we use that in between a conversation, we know that it would convey the additional meaning of contrast. Similarly, the word and would convey the meaning of additional meanings of addition in something. So this is what we accept conventionally. We do have conversational implicature where the meanings are generated in exchange by the speaker and the listener, and interlocutors' cooperation to achieve rational communication is actually what is the target by conveying such meaning. In this regard, we could see particularized conversational implicature where inferences which are worked out while or during conversation are actually based on a certain context. The meanings are driven from the context. They do not exist beyond the context. For example, if the participant A say, "Are you coming to the party?" and B replies that some guests are visiting. So if you see, there is no literal connection or direct connection between statement A or B, but in a certain context in which this question was a question of coming was risen by the participant A, the B looks relevant and it conveys certain meaning. And B probably meant that he would not be able to come because some guests are visiting him that night when he was invited to a party. So we cannot say that the statement B is a plain answer to statement A, but still it is conveying the meaning. Meanings are hidden somewhere, and that's what we call implied meanings. And about these implied meanings is the concept of implicature. Besides, we also have generalized conversational implicature in which no specific or special knowledge of the context is required to convey meanings. For example, if somebody says, "Have you brought bread and cheese?" and the other person replies, "I brought bread," he probably said that "I did not bring cheese." So the meanings are conveyed without saying it literally. So this is what we call generalized conversational implicature.